You know, for most of us, financial freedom feels like this vague, far-off dream, right? But what if I told you it wasn't a dream at all? What if it was a specific number, a moment in time that you could actually calculate and start aiming for today? That's exactly what we're going to do right now. We are going to map out the precise point where you can hit escape velocity and leave the 9-to-5 grind behind for good.
And this quote, this is the whole game right here. It's not just some nice sounding phrase, okay? It is a real, tangible finish line. This is the exact moment the entire financial game flips on its head. When your money, your assets, start doing all the heavy lifting for you. And trust me, when that happens, everything changes.
So let me just ask you this, straight up. When does work become optional? When does it become something you choose to do instead of something you have to do? And look, this isn't some philosophical question. There is a real mathematical answer to this, and we are about to break down exactly how you can find that answer for your own life.
Yeah, this picture, this really gets to the heart of what we're talking about. See, financial freedom isn't about owning a yacht or being rich in the traditional sense. It's about this. It's about having the power to choose, the freedom to decide how you spend every single day. And the best part is, it's not just wishful thinking. There's a formula, a clear path to get there. So let's dive in and break it down.
Okay, so first things first, let's talk about the problem we're all trying to solve here. Escaping the rat race. Because for so many of us, that's what it feels like, right? Like you're on a hamster wheel just running and running, trading your most precious resource, your time, for money. And there's just no end in sight.
And this is the part that's, well, it's kind of terrifying, honestly. This is the default setting for most people. Working for 40 years, maybe more, and never experiencing that moment. Never getting to the point where their money out-earns them. But listen to me. That is the default path. It does not have to be your path. Not at all.
So that brings us to the solution. And it comes from a concept that was really popularized way back in 1992 in this groundbreaking book called Your Money or Your Life. It gives us a specific measurable target, a North Star to aim for, and it's called the crossover point. This is it. This is the whole enchilada, the technical definition of financial independence. It is the literal moment that the line representing your investment income crosses above the line representing your expenses. Once that happens, you're free. You are officially financially independent because your assets can now pay for your life forever, whether you ever work another day or not.
Okay, so how do we actually find this magic number? It's actually a pretty simple 3-step recipe. Step 1. You got to know exactly how much you spend in a year. No guessing. Step 2, we determine what's called a safe withdrawal rate. Basically, the percentage you can pull from your investments each year without running out of money. And step 3, you put those two numbers together to find your target, your FI number.
And here's the formula. Don't let it scare you. It's super simple. You just take your total annual expenses and you divide it by your safe withdrawal rate. Now the standard, the one everybody talks about, is usually 4% or 0.04. You might have also heard this called the 25x rule, and that's because dividing by 0.04 is the exact same thing as multiplying by 25. Same math, different name.
All right, let's put some real numbers on this. Say it costs you $4,000 a month to live. That's $48,000 a year. So we take that $48,000, we divide it by 0.04, and boom, your target is $1.2 million. Now, I know that can sound like a huge number, but don't get hung up on that. The point is, it's not some impossible imaginary number anymore. It's a real concrete goal you can actually work towards.
But wait, reaching that number doesn't mean you just have to grind it out for the next 40 years. No way! There are 2 incredibly powerful, timeless levers you can pull right now to speed this whole process up, like dramatically. Let's take a look at them.
Think of it like a 2-pronged attack. It's simple, really. On one hand, you radically decrease your expenses. You cut the fat. On the other hand, you aggressively increase your savings and investment rate. That's the gap between what you make and what you spend. When you attack both sides of this equation at the same time, man, that's how you shave years, sometimes even decades, off your timeline to freedom.
And check this out. This shows you just how powerful that first lever, cutting expenses, really is. Think about it. If you find a way to cut just $100 from your monthly budget, it does 2 things. Yes, you get an extra $100 to invest, but it also means your final target number, your FI number, just dropped by $30,000. That's insane. It's a double whammy. You're building your pile faster and you're moving the finish line closer.
And listen, along this journey, you're going to hit some really cool milestones. One of the absolute biggest is something called Coast Fire. This is awesome. This is the point where your investment portfolio is big enough that if you never invested another single dollar, compound interest alone would get you to your FI number by retirement age. You could literally just coast. Stop saving. Your retirement is locked in. Talk about a psychological boost. That kind of freedom gives you so many options long before you're completely financially independent.
Okay, so we've got the timeless levers, right? Spend less, invest more. Those are the foundation. They are non-negotiable. But the world is changing. The financial landscape is evolving. And the tools we're going to have access to in 2026 are opening up brand new ways to get to our goal even faster. And it's all about focusing on one thing: cash flow.
You know, for decades, all the personal finance gurus talked about one thing: net worth. Building up this big pile of assets. And hey, that's important for sure. But what we're talking about now is cash flow. That's your month-to-month financial stability. It's the money coming in versus the money going out. It's what actually pays the bills. And some really cool new tech is making it possible to build up these cash flow streams in ways that just weren't possible before.
And one of the biggest game changers in this space is something called real-world assets, or RWAs. Now, I know that sounds super technical, but the idea is actually really simple. Imagine you have a big, stable, income-producing thing, like a loan to a big company or even the government T-bill. What RWAs do is use blockchain technology to kind of slice that big asset up into tiny digital pieces. They tokenize it. And that means regular investors, people like you and me, can now buy a small piece of these things that used to be only for the super rich or giant institutions.
And just so we're clear, this isn't some tiny niche thing happening in a corner of the internet. We're talking about a market that's projected to hit $50 billion by 2026. That's a massive shift in how regular people can generate income from their investments.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Look at these numbers. Private credit is the big one here. Look at those yields. We're talking 8 to 14%. Even US Treasuries, which are super safe, are kicking off solid returns. This is direct, passive cash flow that hits your account. This is the stuff that can help you close that gap to your crossover point way faster.
And I want to be super clear about something. This isn't the wild west of crypto from a few years ago. This entire market is maturing fast. It's being driven by more regulatory clarity and, get this, adoption by the biggest players on Wall Street. I'm talking about giants like BlackRock and JP Morgan. When they get involved, you know it's becoming mainstream.
Okay, let's pull this all together. We've talked about the timeless formula for financial freedom, and we've looked at some of the brand new tools that can help you get there faster than ever before. So, what does this mean for you? Let's map out your personal path forward.
Here it is, your 3-step action plan. Super simple. Number 1, calculate your crossover number. Tonight, know your target. Number 2, pull those 2 timeless levers. Start attacking your spending and ramping up your investing. And number 3, start learning about these new tools. Look into things like RWAs and see how you can start building those cash flow streams.
And please, never forget the why. This isn't just about spreadsheets and investment returns. Reaching that crossover point, it's not really about retiring. It's about reclaiming your time. It's about taking back control of the one asset you can never, ever get more of, so you can finally spend it on the people and the things that actually matter to you. So I want to leave you with this one final thought to chew on. Every single purchase you make has 2 price tags. There's the dollar amount, right? The price on the sticker, but there's a second invisible cost, the future freedom you are trading for it. The minutes, the hours, the years of your life you are exchanging for that thing. And once you start seeing that trade-off, every decision you make with your money starts to look a little different. So the only question left is, which cost are you optimizing for?
Wow, that was something, right? But don't go anywhere, there's more coming, and it's gonna make you think in a whole new way. Quick reminder, if you like learning cool stuff without the fluff, subscribe now. You won't regret it.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Violet Vault. Today we're talking about something I'm calling the Sovereign Shield. Think of it as your guide to a massive financial change that's already set in stone for 2026. And believe me, understanding what's coming could make all the difference for your future. So let's just dive right in with a pretty direct question. For a whole lot of people, maybe even you, the answer to this is a quiet and maybe kind of scary yes. And the reason why is hiding in plain sight, just around the corner. All right, so here's the deal. On January 1st, 2026, a whole bunch of our current tax laws are just going to vanish. They're set to expire, and the old rules are designed to just snap right back into place. Now, this isn't some tiny adjustment. It is a major reset, and it really creates a fork in the road. For some, it's going to be a huge opportunity. But for those who aren't ready, it's a very real financial trap. So let's break down exactly what is going on here. This whole thing is often called the Great Tax Sunset. And the clock for it actually started ticking a few years back with a law passed in 2017. It's called the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, or TCJA for short. It was this massive overhaul of the US tax code. But here is the catch, the really crucial fine print. A lot of the biggest changes, especially for individuals, were written with a built-in expiration date. That date is December 31st, 2025. And unless Congress steps in to change things, which is always a big if, the old system just comes roaring back. And right off the bat, this is the first change that makes you just stop and pay attention. The amount of money you can pass on to your family or heirs completely tax-free is scheduled to be chopped almost exactly in half. We're talking about a drop from about $14 million per person down to around $7 million. Now, for any family out there trying to build and pass down generational wealth, that is a massive, massive change. And it's not just about inheritances. This hits your yearly earnings too. For higher earners, the top income tax rate is set to jump from 37% back up to 39.6%. But it's not just that top rate. The income thresholds for all the tax brackets are changing too. And what that means is that a lot of people could find themselves pushed into a higher tax bracket, even if they don't get a raise. Okay, so with this big storm brewing on the horizon, how do the savviest investors and wealthy families get ready? Well, they don't just hope for the best. They build a financial fortress. And the real secret isn't just what they own, but how they own it. This quote absolutely nails it. See, the wealthiest people almost never own valuable things like a business or a big real estate portfolio in their own personal name. It's all about the architecture, the structure, creating this web of legal entities designed for one thing: maximum protection and tax efficiency. So one of the main pillars in this fortress is something called a holding company. The easiest way to think about it is like a corporate safe. It's a real company, but it doesn't actually make anything or sell any services. Its one and only job is to own other things, like your actual business that makes money. This creates a legal firewall. So if your operating business ever gets sued, the valuable assets that are tucked away safely inside the holding company are shielded. All right, let's look at another key piece of the puzzle, and this is where it gets really interesting. It's called an asset protection trust. This is an incredibly powerful legal tool that, well, it does something that sounds almost impossible. It legally separates you from your own assets. You transfer ownership of your assets to the trust. So on paper, you don't own them anymore. The trust does. This makes it incredibly difficult for creditors or lawsuits to get to them, because you can't sue someone for something they don't legally own. And that brings us to one of the most famous and frankly, most misunderstood strategies of the ultra-wealthy. It's a three-step dance that financial insiders have called a true masterstroke of tax planning. Okay, let's walk through this together. Step 1 is buy. You buy assets that you expect to grow in value over time, stocks, real estate, things like that. Easy enough. Step 2 is borrow. Now, when you need cash to live on, you don't sell those assets because selling would trigger a huge capital gains tax bill. No, instead, you take out a loan against those assets. And here's the magic trick. Loan proceeds are not considered income, so they're not taxed. Finally, step 3 is die. When you pass away, your kids inherit those assets. But because of a powerful rule called the stepped-up basis, the cost of the asset for tax purposes gets reset to whatever its value is on the day you die. This completely wipes out all the taxable gain from over the years. Your heirs can then sell a small piece of the asset, pay back the loan, and owe potentially zero capital gains tax on decades of growth. It is wild. And the expert attorneys who actually set these things up for their clients, they don't pull any punches. They call it devastatingly effective for a reason. When you do it right, it can legally eliminate the two biggest taxes most people ever think about: capital gains tax on their investments and the estate tax when they pass those investments along. But, and this is a really important but, we need a reality check here. While the idea itself is simple, pulling it off is incredibly complex and expensive. This strategy really only starts to make sense for people with a net worth of over $300 million. And you might ask, why that number? Well, it's because at that level of wealth, you can get special, custom-built loans from private banks with terms that are favorable enough to make the whole thing work. It's just not something you can do with a regular loan. So the final layer of this shield, it isn't about another legal document. It's about geography. It involves looking beyond your own country's borders and using the different legal and tax systems around the world to your advantage. This is called jurisdictional strategy. Now, the whole idea behind this is based on something called a territorial tax system. The concept is actually pretty simple. These countries only tax money that is earned inside their borders. So if you live in one of these places, but all your business clients or your investments are back in the US or Europe, that country might not tax your foreign income at all. And look, this isn't some shady, obscure thing. It is a well-established, totally legal system offered by a lot of stable modern countries. We're talking about places all over the globe, from Latin America with Panama and Costa Rica, to Asia with Singapore and Malaysia, and the Middle East with the UAE. They all have their own specific rules and benefits for residents. And this leads wealthy families to a really big decision. Do you set up your trust here at home, or do you take it offshore? A domestic trust is definitely simpler. It works under US laws, which are familiar, but an offshore trust can offer a much stronger layer of protection because its assets are literally outside the legal reach of US courts. The trade-off, of course, is that going offshore is like putting a giant flashing neon sign on your finances that says, "Look at me," to the IRS. It guarantees a much, much higher level of scrutiny. So, after going through all of this, these complex structures, these global strategies, it kind of forces us to ask a really big fundamental question. And I want to be absolutely crystal clear on this point. Everything we've talked about today, holding companies, trusts, using different jurisdictions, these are not illegal loopholes. There's a huge difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion. Avoidance is just legally using the tax code as it's written to your advantage. Evasion is breaking the law. Everything we've discussed falls squarely in the category of legal avoidance. And all of this leads us to one final, really provocative thought. When you see how differently our tax code treats the money you earn from a paycheck versus wealth that's held and grown inside these complex structures, you have to ask yourself, do we really have two different tax systems in this country? One for people who get paid for their labor, and a completely separate one for people who make money from their capital? It's a powerful question and definitely one worth thinking about.
Wow, that was something, right? But don't go anywhere, there's more coming, and it's going to make you think in a whole new way. Quick reminder, if you like learning cool stuff without the fluff, subscribe now. You won't regret it.
Okay, let's be real for a second. What is the big dream for pretty much all of us? It's financial freedom, right? You know, that glorious day you finally get to walk away from the 9 to 5 for good. But what if I told you that for a whole lot of people, that exact day, the day they finally quit, is actually one of the most terrifying days of their entire lives? Yeah, sounds completely backwards, I know. But today, we're going to dig into the hidden psychology of what it really means to leave that salary trap behind.
Man, this quote, it just hits you right in the gut, doesn't it? Just let that sink in for a moment. The crisis, the depression, it's not about the paycheck disappearing. It's about losing who you are, or maybe more accurately, the version of yourself you've spent decades building, polishing, and showing off to the world. And when that's just gone overnight, what are you left with? It's a massive, massive identity crisis.
And this right here, this is the big one. This is the finish line we are all sprinting towards, isn't it? The legendary crossover point. That absolutely beautiful, almost magical moment where the money your investments make is finally more than your salary. It's the holy grail, the Super Bowl of personal finance. It's the moment you can finally throw your hands up and say, I'm free.
So, this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? What happens when you actually win the game? The champagne's been popped, you've double-checked the spreadsheets for the 100th time, you've made it. But then what? What do you actually do on that first Monday morning when the alarm doesn't go off and your inbox is completely empty? Crickets.
All right, so here's the thing that most of us just completely miss. The salary trap, it was never just about the money. Not really. It's so much deeper than that. It's psychological. For so many people, your job isn't just how you pay the mortgage. It's how you define yourself. It's your entire identity.
Believe it or not, there's actually a psychological term for this. It's called identity enmeshment. Now that's a mouthful, but all it really means is that the line between you as a person and you as a professional gets, well, totally blurry. You know what I mean, right? When a big project succeeds, you feel like a rock star. When something fails at work, you feel like a personal failure. That boundary just completely disappears.
I mean, come on, just think about it. You're at a party, you meet someone new for the first time. What's like the second or third question that always comes up? So what do? We all do it. It's our go-to social shortcut to kind of size someone up, to figure out where they fit. So when your answer to that question is suddenly, nothing, man, it can feel like you've just become invisible. Now pay close attention to this, because this is a really key difference. It's all about mindset. The employee mindset says, I work for the company. My job is to execute, to keep the gears turning as they should. It's predictable, it's reliable. But the owner mindset, that's totally different. That says, I work on the company. My job is to make the whole machine better, to find new ways to create value. This shift in thinking is, well, it's everything. So keep this one in your back pocket.
Okay, so you've done it. You pulled the trigger. You walked out that door for the last time. You've escaped the trap, and you step right into, well, a giant empty void. And this is the crisis. It's this phase of just complete disorientation that, I'm telling you, catches almost everyone totally off guard.
And yep, you guessed it, there's a name for this one too. It's called sudden wealth syndrome. And I know what you're thinking, that sounds like something for lottery winners or tech billionaires, but honestly, it perfectly describes the shock and the pressure that people feel when they finally hit financial independence. How crazy is that? You get an identity crisis as a reward for achieving your biggest goal. Wild.
And the symptoms here, they are so real, and they can be really painful. Think about it. That automatic status that came with your job title, poof, gone. The daily chats with your work friends, vanished. Your entire routine, the whole structure of your day, your week, it just evaporates. You're left with this massive, empty space, which can lead to some serious loneliness and this paralyzing feeling of, what on earth do I do now?
Wow. This quote from a retired police officer, it's just brutally honest. I was treated as a normal person. Can you imagine? I mean, going from a position of real power and respect, where your title means something, to just being another face in the crowd, that's got to be a massive shock to your system, to your ego, to your whole sense of who you are.
Okay, but here's the good news. I promise, it's not all doom and gloom. This crisis, it's not the end of the story. It's a pivot point. It's the moment you stop looking in the rearview mirror at the identity you left behind, and you start looking ahead to design the one you actually want. This is where we introduce a powerful new idea, the sovereign architect's mindset.
And let me be super clear about this. The solution is not to just go find another job. The solution is a fundamental change in how you see yourself. It's a shift in your posture, from employee to sovereign architect. You're not looking for a new boss anymore, because guess what? You are the boss now. You're the designer, the builder, the one in charge of the entire project of your life.
Yeah, this breaks it down perfectly. Think about it this way. As an employee, all your energy is flowing outward to build someone else's dream, someone else's company. But as the architect, that energy flows inward first. You design your mission, your blueprint, and then you direct your energy outward to build it. The whole dynamic flips from needing outside approval to having your own internal compass.
So you're probably asking, okay, that sounds great, but how do I actually do that? Well, it really boils down to 3 key shifts. First, you've got to start seeing your life as a whole system, not just a series of disconnected tasks. Second, you have to learn to get comfortable with the unknown, with ambiguity. That empty space isn't scary, it's your canvas. And third, and this is a big one, you start creating value just because you can, not because a boss told you to.
And this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, and honestly the most exciting part, building your new self. And I'm not just talking about recreation, playing more golf or traveling. I'm talking about recreation, about consciously and intentionally building what some people call your second mountain.
I love this concept. Think of your career, your whole working life, as climbing your first mountain. That climb is all about you, right? Building your resume, your bank account, your ego, proving you can make it to the top. But the second mountain, that's a whole different climb. It's not about you anymore. It's about purpose, about contribution. The whole question changes from what can I get to what can I give. So, what does the second mountain look like? Here's a really simple but powerful way to think about it. Build it on 3 pillars. First, health. This is your foundation, mental and physical. It's non-negotiable. Second, influence. This is about sharing what you've learned, your wisdom, maybe through mentoring or teaching. And third, legacy. This is about building something that's going to be around long after you're gone.
If you're looking for a great tool to help you figure all this out, you have to check out the Japanese concept of ikigai. It is so cool. It's basically finding that sweet spot, that perfect intersection of 4 things: what you love to do, what you're really good at, what the world actually needs, and what you can be rewarded for. And that doesn't just mean money. When you find that center point, you've found your ikigai, your reason for being.
And this is where it all comes full circle, right back to the money. Look, your wealth is no longer just about accumulating more. It's not just a number on a spreadsheet anymore. It's fuel.
You make the big shift from being an asset accumulator to an asset steward. You're now strategically using those resources to fund your mission, to build your health, your influence, and your legacy.
So, we end right back where we began, but hopefully with a totally new way of looking at things. See, the goal was never just about being free from something, like your job. The real prize, the real win, is being free for something, for your life's true work. The chains are officially off, so now the only question left to answer is, what will you, the sovereign architect, decide to build with it?
Thank you for spending time with us here at the Violet Vault. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay focused and keep growing.